Hello and welcome to the Real Biz Life Chronicles, where we discuss all things business, branding and life. I'm your host, Tracy Fryer. Today we are going to discuss all things brand messaging and copywriting with two very talented ladies. Now, I'm not biased at all because they are part of the Design Studio Perth team. Sian and Chelsea, welcome.
Hi.
Thank you. It's great to be here. We're excited.
Thanks, ladies. I thought what would be beneficial is if you ladies perhaps give an intro about yourselves and we can go from there.
Sounds good.
Cool. Chelsea, we'll start with you.
Awesome. So basically, from when I could read or write, I absolutely loved words. So it almost makes perfect sense that I became a copywriter. But it actually took me a while to realize that that was going to be my career path. But yeah, I studied marketing, went into corporate and was exposed to all the different types of writing and content writing, and then really discovered, brand messaging is for me. And fast forward a few years, I'm at Design Studio Perth. Yeah, absolutely loving crafting brand messaging and website content for clients. Yeah.
Thanks, Chelsea. Sian?
So my journey is a little bit different to Chelsea's. I definitely have always had the gift of the gab with being able to change words and frame stories in a certain way. But I don't think I realized it until I had finished university and I did a double major in international relations and public relations, which really teaches you how to deal with people. And that is where I learned through public relations that I really love writing stuff and putting stories in a certain way that really emulates not only what a brand wants to represent, but what they're trying to achieve with their brand as well. So in that way, I think when it comes to writing brand copy, Chelsea just gets it on the point, and learning from her has just been such an amazing experience. But in either way, it's just such a phenomenal industry to be a part of because people don't understand the value of words. They really don't.
No, 100%. So true. And I thought what might be good is if we could go back to basics, because for some people, they have no idea what copywriting is. So perhaps, Sian, did you want to give us a brief intro into what exactly copywriting is? And then Chelsea, we'll head over to you and perhaps you could touch a bit on brand messaging.
Sure.
So my understanding of copywriting, when everyone asks me, don't you do copy? And is that not a legal thing? Do you write legal documentation? It's so different. There's literally a letter difference between the two, but it's an entirely different industry. So for me, copywriting is understanding a brand and what they are trying to communicate through their brand and putting the words together that does that in a really simple and effective way that doesn't leave people questioning, but why? We want to answer that as succinctly as possible, but without losing the value of what the brand is trying to communicate.
Yes. Thank you. And Chelsea, brand messaging. If I was a first timer, how would you describe brand messaging to me?
Sure. I'd basically break it down and say your business has a personality, whether you're aware of it or not. And when it comes to brand messaging, it's just intentionally looking at that and saying, how do I want my business to come across? And how can we communicate in a way that attracts our ideal client? What tone do we want to use? What kind of key messages are we going to repeat? Because as most people know about marketing, there's something to be said for being consistent and bringing that same message, that same theme through. So I would say in a nutshell, that's what brand messaging helps a business do excellently and continually. Yeah.
And I guess what are some of the, pitfalls if you don't have your brand messaging defined? What have you seen with some clients who don't have that, clearly mapped out for their business?
Yeah, I think the brand messaging is just really haphazard. So they aren't targeting their ideal client. They may be talking to this group of people today and this group of people tomorrow, or they've gone toward a completely incorrect platform, or they're not speaking correctly on the platform they're on. So for example, people speak a different way on LinkedIn than, Instagram. So yeah, I think it's just you waste time and you waste energy and resources when you don't know how to communicate properly to your target audience. So I would say that's the biggest pitfall and the biggest disadvantage. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Sian, what would you say to someone who doesn't have their ideal client defined? What would be the first steps to really, define who that person is? Because I've heard a saying, if you obviously market to everyone, you're a specialist to no one. If someone was trying to think about how can I define my ideal client, we have Steve, who is Design Studio Perth's ideal client. As I've said before, I think about Steve more than my husband, really define it. Where does Steve hang out? Where does he hang out? What does Steve do? We figured out that Steve has potentially been married twice. He's divorced twice. He's a very busy man. So John, my question is, what would be some recommendations you could give to someone who is trying to define their ideal client?
The first recommendation I would give is contact Tracy immediately, because DSP can do it better than anyone else, to be quite honest. Yeah, exactly. But in all honesty, I think it would just be to not try and do it yourself, because as a business owner, I think we get so into our business that we forget to work in it, on it, and beyond it. And when you're trying to identify who it is that you're trying to sell to and you don't necessarily know, I think you're leaving so much money on the table, because number one, you're missing the right words that communicate with that specific target audience, and you're not really understanding your business in their minds to try and put value where they really know they need a solution, but they don't know where to find it, and they don't know what it looks like. So that's for me.
And I guess that is another big thing. Yeah, is a brand tone of voice. So Chelsea, perhaps you could walk us through the importance of a brand tone of voice. The example I always give is, do you talk to your client using slang like "Hey babe" or "Hey girl" or something along those lines? But perhaps did you want to give us a bit of insight into the importance of a brand tone of voice and how business owners can use it to essentially communicate with their ideal client?
Sure. So I think social media has really highlighted how the different generations speak. So if you're targeting Gen Z or you're targeting boomers, each generation speaks really distinctly. And so by just taking the time, even if it's an afternoon, like Sian said, it's better if you come to Design Studio Perth, but even if you sit as a business owner and think for yourself, how is it appropriate to communicate to my client? And you can think, if I were with my client in person, how would I be presenting myself? Can we have a casual conversation? Do we want a friendly relationship out of this? Or is it very much, I'm a professional, this is what I can give you, and a very formal approach? So it's very much dependent on who your ideal client is. But as soon as you know that, you can definitely tailor your tone and your language and whether you can use slang or not to your client.
And I know, Chelsea, you've helped build out the amazing brand toolkit that we create for our clients. In terms of a unique selling point or having an elevator pitch, what would be some guidelines you'd recommend someone do around those two things?
Sure. I think, determining your unique selling proposition or something that differentiates you from your competitors is essential. And I think some of the traps that businesses fall into is they try to stay along the safe lines that their competitors are offering as well. Saying we offer a personalized service, or we high in communication, high in integrity. So those are incredible things.
So common.
And they need to come through. But in terms of a differentiator, it's saying, okay, well, maybe I am pretty similar to my competitors, but what is my unique strength, either as a person, as the business owner, or in my business, that I can really put forth as our differentiator? Because you can still operate in high integrity and communicate clearly, but you need something different, something that's going to stand out in the saturated market. So I think it's kind of like you must decide what's unique about you, because businesses in each industry, of course, they're providing a similar service and operating a similar way. And then as soon as you've got that articulated very clearly, very carefully with your ideal client in mind, you can bring that all together with your key messages and then craft your elevator pitch from there. So it's definitely a process, to build it out.
Sian, was there anything you wanted to add around that?
Oh no, when it comes to all things branding, I trust Chelsea's judgment entirely. I actually asked her a similar question the other day because with Chelsea going on maternity leave, I know I'll have to pick up one or two of these brand identity toolkits, and I just wanted to better understand, how do we get the client to a point where they actually truly understand what their USPs are and how to verbalize what their mission is, what their vision is, because generally it's just word salad and it doesn't bear much weight. And we had this discussion and Chelsea said you really just need to understand the type of questions you need to ask them to guide them towards understanding what their vision and mission really means to them and how they're going to implement it moving forward, because it shouldn't just be something that's just words. It should become the living and breathing purpose of your business that you constantly go back to and say, okay, am I doing what I needed to do in order to achieve what I said in my vision and my mission? So I think that pretty much outlines that.
Yeah, because what I find a lot of, I guess, when business owners are first starting, say they're in, graphic design, for example, they'll go and look what their competitors are doing and then kind of just rinse and repeat whatever they've got. So that could be their website copy, potentially their logo. And I know a big thing that you ladies are great at is, custom, if I can say, and really tailoring it to the individual client and really helping them define those unique selling points. Because again, integrity, honesty, we should hope those are part of your value set and your services, but really helping them get clear on what makes them really different.
Absolutely.
And in terms of values, what are some pointers around values, Sian?
For businesses or for me personally?
Yeah. Well, you can share your personal values if you like and how they've kind of, I guess, navigated you through life and why they're important for a business owner to also have those implemented into their business.
So I think when it comes to values, it should be based on the things that you are inherently good at, because you're only going to be adding value to someone else if you give the best of what you have to give. If I find when businesses kind of lose touch with their values, it's because they're trying to grab onto every opportunity that makes themselves available to them. And in doing so, you kind of water down your brand a little bit because you're doing things that don't represent your services at their best that they could possibly be, just because you're trying to increase your bottom line. And where there's value in making profit, there's also more value in providing valuable services to people. So I think that's my number one value, is just be very authentic to what it is that you do well and focus on doing that properly.
Yeah. And are there any other values of yours that you'd be comfortable sharing?
Sure. Off the bat, in all honesty, I think it's just being honest, to be quite frank, because I think a lot of people, especially in entrepreneurship, we tend to be people pleasers because that's how we get the foot in the door. Client needs this, we say yes and we do it. But if you're not honest with yourself, it's very difficult to be honest with other people. And I think honesty with clients is a very fine line in between where you are going to be honest to kind of damage the relationship because they want something and you want to give it to them, but you can't give it to them in the way that they may want it, or they may change their mind a million times and it's not something that you're good at. So I think honesty and sticking to the things that you're good at, those are my biggest values, the things that I attach to absolutely everything that I do. But other than that, I can't really think, to be honest.
That's all right. Chelsea, did you have anything you want to share around values?
Sure. I think it's just really important that if a business is going to put it out into the public what their values are, that they stand by them. So instead of, having 12 values present on your website, for example, rather stick to 4 that you really know you can commit to, because people are going to hold you to that. If you say you have an excellent response time as part of your, communication blurb, they're going to expect that from you. So if it's not a strength of yours, it's better not to portray it as a foundational brand value. So I think just mean what you say what you mean when it comes to stating your values. Yeah.
And for yourself, Chelsea, what are some personal values that you live by? I know I've worked with you for a year now, and how you operate, you're very values driven. Are you comfortable sharing some of those values and how they help you navigate from day to day?
Sure. I think for me, balance is very important. So I love my work. I find it really energizing, but life's not just work. There's also family and all those good things. And so I think balance is definitely something I've had to learn. I think we need to readjust our idea of balance in each season, because in every season, different things need to be prioritized. So I'd say balance,
So
and
true.
then excellence would be another one. And that's not perfection. It's just you doing your personal best. So your personal best in your work and your relationships, in managing your mind and your health. And so I think the two values work together. They kind of stand out to me. Yeah.
And I know, Chelsea, for you, a big one is faith. Are you comfortable to share how that's also helping you navigate through life? And I know it's you're very sort of centered as well in how you operate.
Yes. No, I mean, if you want me to share on that, I'm happy to.
Of course, welcome.
I love Jesus, and I feel like I don't even think I'd be alive today without him. So yeah, really,
You and me both.
Anything good that I am, or good that I have, or good that I've achieved, I definitely attribute it to the Lord. And so I live my life according to the word, how I treat people, how I treat myself, how I manage my time. 100% based on my relationship with the Lord, and letting him guide me every day, and everything, literally. Basically nothing without the Lord. So definitely give him all the glory for that.
Yeah. And how do you find that helps you navigate like through struggles? Because, life, I wish it was smooth sailing and sometimes a bit more boring than what it is, but it's not. So how do you find navigating through struggles? How does that sort of impact, how you work through that?
Sure. So because of what Jesus did, he has given us ultimately the victory over everything. And so when anything adverse comes my way, I know I don't need to succumb to it, and that it needs to listen to the word of God. So if something bad happens, there's definitely a scripture for it. You declare the word, and the circumstance will change in accordance with the word of God. And so that's how I've navigated life, and my family's navigated life. So the circumstances must bow down to the word, and they do. And so that's how we remain victorious.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you for sharing.
Sure.
Sian, something I wanted to chat about, being an amazing mom and a business operator and working full time and all the other wonderful things that you do. How do you do it all?
It's a very good question, Awela. I think it comes with a lot of long hours. I think when I just had my baby, it was at the height of COVID, and it was then that I decided I can't send him to school, so I had to leave my job in corporate and look after him full time. And I was just freelancing at the time and just trying to make ends meet. And I think that was probably the beginning of my understanding that if I want to make things happen, you have to be the one to do them, and you can't rely on someone else to do them for you. So if you have to put in the long hours, if you have to work over weekends, if you have to work past midnight, I know Chelsea's big on balance. For me, I understand that balance, but when it comes to work-life balance, I feel like it's a constant pendulum that swings one way or the other. And then at any given moment, you find something of solace and balance. And then for maybe a couple of moments, then all of a sudden it's out of swing again, and you've got to do one thing or the other to reach that point again. But I think it's just constantly being present and making sure that whatever you're doing in the given moment, you're doing your best that you can do. So whether you're with your child, give your child that attention, and I'll generally put work down for that time that I'm with them. But then when I'm working, I'm wholeheartedly focused on what it is that I'm doing and making sure that I can give of my best without burning the candle on both ends.
Yes, so important. Been there, done that too. There's no wick left. And Chelsea, I guess what would be your advice for a mom who's potentially thinking of starting her own business? Are there any tips that you could share around that?
Sure. I think the first thing for that mom to note is that it's completely doable. You can be a mom and you can be a business owner. I think that's number one, because sometimes the mental block against it is what stops people from starting in the beginning. And I think the awesome thing I learned when I moved from corporate to freelance is there's so much you can do for your business that you want to launch while you are still employed. Obviously not in those work hours, but I'm saying, whether it's half an hour a day, that time adds up. So whatever you can, whatever time you can allocate to building your business, in your current context, do it, because eventually you're going to be able to step out. And I think just having a good support group for your child, my daughter basically begged to go to school.
Did she?
So that was really helpful. Yeah, she's so extroverted. She did not get it from her father or myself. She probably got it from her aunt, Sarah Lee. But and obviously if school's not an option, just having your community to take care of your kids in the time when you do need to work, that can work too. You've just got to decide, what routine can you adopt that can facilitate your dreams and help you still raise your children really well as well. Yeah.
And ladies, one thing I'd love to chat about is AI. So how do we feel there's still a place for copywriters? Because I know copywriters, graphic designers, web designers. I saw a thing a few months ago where someone built out a brand, did a website in 6 minutes. The brand color was poo brown, I will be honest, but it happened. Not great, but it was poo brown. So whilst I understand, AI, it serves a place. What are your ladies' thoughts? Sian, perhaps you want to kick us off?
This has been such a point of contention. I've had people on my TikTok commenting, you better find a new job because you're going to be out of work soon because of AI. Meanwhile, I think that the market is going to change where I think with AI, it's so easy to see where someone has used it, especially ChatGPT, because it loves to say things like in the realm of, this is not Star Wars. Like, we're not playing Star Wars here. And I don't know why you're using this line, but anyway. So I think we're going to reach a point where people are also going to be able to easily identify what is AI and what is not human driven. And then there's going to be more value back on the human element, because you can't get that from AI, no matter how great your inputs are. There's a place for it. It's a really handy tool, but I think it's a means to an end and not something to use in entirety by itself, because you can't do what humans do, and computers can't do what, we can't do what computers do, and computers can't do what we do. And there's a place for all of us, and there's enough of us to go around, and enough of technology to implement with our helping hand.
Thank you. Chelsea, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I definitely agree with Sian. And from what I've seen of ChatGPT or, Magic Write on Canva, or whichever AI tools I've looked at.
Oh, I haven't even seen that one on Canva.
Yeah, it's cool. I mean, it's basically the same as ChatGPT. But in my opinion, it's like a really cheap research assistant. So if you don't want to, read the first 4 blog posts in Google, and you want to learn a bit more about a topic, you can say, what are the 5 key features of X, or, just for research. So I find it's a quick research partner, but in terms of it being, this excellent wordsmith able to, succinctly develop brand messaging or whatever, it's not really competent. And like Sian said, I've noticed it likes to repeat the same phrases. Like in the saturated digital world as well, comes out quite a bit. Yeah, so, I love that humans are always pursuing greater technological advancements, and it's really cool that they've been able to develop it, and it does have its place.
Yeah.
In terms of it kicking out copywriters and content writers, it's just not going to happen. So I'm definitely not worried about it.
No, I tend to agree. I have dabbled a bit in it sometimes when I'm, working on the podcast stuff late at night, trying to write maybe a heading or a title when my brain can't think. I've noticed that it does regurgitate the same sort of stuff and always kind of uses these very extravagant, funny words in it. So yeah, I mean, I guess, it's good to kind of get a bit of a framework, but then I guess, putting that human touch and kind of customing it to whatever it is that you're trying to use it for is super important.
Absolutely.
And ladies, website copy. Now, this is another whole conversation. I guess maybe what I'd love to hear your thoughts on is the importance of website copy. Because again, as I mentioned before, some business owners will just go and copy and paste, obviously that's highly illegal in terms of copyright, from someone else's website, or they might copy and paste and try to tweak it a bit. Maybe we could highlight some key, I want to say your website copy is essentially an asset. Maybe just some key pointers on website copy and why it is paramount to a business owner's website. Chelsea, we'll kick off with you.
Sure. So, I mean, as we all know, it's literally internet first. And your website is your digital storefront. If I want to see how legitimate a brand is, I'm going to their website to see,
Yes.
To look at it on the whole. And I think some pointers to note is that people skim read content. We all, as wordsmiths, really hope that everyone's going to read every single word, but they really don't. They skim read to get the overall gist of it. So in terms of your words and in terms of your design, you need to be on point. Within 3 seconds, someone's going to ascertain whether you're a great brand or not. And so, I think just making sure that your headings are communicating the core messages that you want your ideal client to receive. And basically you can't overemphasize the importance of your website. If you don't have a website, your social media presence, even that, it's not going to be enough.
Thank you, Sian.
I think that there's also a lot of value in educating clients when we start to work with them on their website, because a lot of people forget that there's a very specific way that Google likes to crawl and analyze your website. And if you're not making use of the very strategic placements of the words that you use in your website, you're going to miss opportunities where you could possibly list first on the search results pages, as opposed to being all the way down at the bottom because you wanted your headline to rather be something more aligned to your slogan than what your business actually does. So I think when it comes to websites, we always try and educate our clients in understanding that. And Chelsea does an amazing job at identifying their core values, and those things lead to the keywords that we can implement on their website. So I think when it comes to writing your website, as much as we skim, and we as copywriters, we always want people to read our words, but we understand that they don't. And I had this conversation with my sister the other night because I was busy doing copy for a coffee table book. And she said, well, don't worry too much about the words because we will probably just look at the pictures in any case. And I said, fair enough. But don't you think that if you look at the pictures and they do look at the words still need to be as good as the pictures. They need to speak volumes. So I think, a lot of people don't understand the value of the words, not only with your brand, but on your website. And having a copywriter assist with that really highlights the value thereof.
Definitely. And Sian, something I've noticed that you're really great at is if there is a brand tone of voice, or if there is that branding toolkit in place, one of your skills is really translating that into the website copy. Perhaps you want to give us a brief overview for our listeners of, the importance of a brand toolkit or a brand tone of voice document, and how that feeds into website copy. And I guess more importantly, how hard it is to actually execute on website copy effectively if you don't have that sort of foundation in place.
So if you think about it in terms of like steps. So when you have your identity, your brand identity toolkit already laid out, the foundation for the brand that you're trying to push forward is a lot easier to identify than what it would be if you just handed your website to someone and say, please develop a website. This is what we do. These are our services. These are our products. You pretty much are just plonking words onto a live platform that people can see without actually understanding what you're trying to communicate. So what Chelsea does amazingly is gets to the root cause and the root benefits of why your company is the preferred decision. Because when people are looking for something online, they're not deciding between you and someone else. They're deciding between you and nothing else. And you have the opportunity to therefore kind of coax them into understanding that you're the best possible solution for them. If you don't have your brand identity toolkit laid out, number one, I think it's going to take you a lot longer to write the copy for that website because you don't understand where your starting point is and what you're trying to communicate. And number two, I think it just lays out the information the pertinent information. There's not a lot of waffle. We get to the point really quickly. And as Chelsea's already said, you only have about 3 seconds to capture their attention when they're on your website.
So true.
Without an identity toolkit, you'll have some headline, maybe a secondary headline, some waffle, and then maybe some of your services. It's never succinct. It's never directly to the point, and you're not giving the person what they're looking for immediately. And they're going to take longer to identify what it is that you do. They'll probably hop off your website with still not understanding what it is that you provide. And I think it just doesn't support your business. So starting points are really important. Identifying those things. Chelsea makes simple a brand identity toolkit right up there. I would rather start with that before doing a website. I don't think that there's much value in doing having that.
Definitely. And Chelsea, perhaps you want to walk us through a bit of your process, because I know you are a whiz at this. Perhaps just, where a client would sort of start and then how you get to the final brand toolkit side of things in terms of brand messaging.
Sure. Well, it definitely starts with that very important conversation with the client, because I think the first goal that I have is to get whatever the client has in their mind about their brand onto a page. Because sometimes we have all these thoughts about our business, we have all these thoughts about who we want to target and how we want to come across. But when it comes to articulating it, that's where we fall short. So I think the first step would be that important conversation where the client can just get out exactly, who they feel their brand needs to be and how they want to come across. And then we go through a process of refining. So, sometimes people will say, let me just think. They want to come across a certain way. But then the ideal client that they describe to me, they don't communicate in that way. So during that conversation, the client can see that there's this disconnect between the type of way they want their brand to be presented, but then also how the ideal client receives it. So that's really helpful, because the client's able to process real time and see any disconnects, see any potential connections. Sometimes it's like they realize in that call what their unique selling proposition is, because they'll state one thing, and then as the conversation progresses, they say, you know what, actually, this is what's resonating the most with Steve, to use
yes.
And then I go away in terms of process, and take that to write the key brand elements, your vision, mission, values, USP, key messages, your ideal client, all of that, and then bring it together neatly as an elevator pitch. And I think I always, I often say to our DSP clients, it's perfectly fine to request edits, because sometimes when you've gone away from that conversation and you've had a few nights sleep, and then you get your toolkit, you think, you know what, I do actually want to be slightly more formal, or I do want to be slightly more relaxed, or this is actually a key message that I think we need to highlight above the other two. Because it has to be this collaboration, because I'm able to, pull things together succinctly, but ultimately it's the client's baby, it's the client's vision, it's their dream, and it needs to accurately represent them. Because when the project closes for me, it's still our clients, it's their life, it's their business, and it's got to be evergreen. It's got to last them for all the years ahead. So it's that important to get that balance. Yeah.
And Chelsea, something else you taught me, which I wasn't actually aware of, is that there are different kinds of copywriters. So I know when you first joined the team, I was like, oh, can you do this? Can you do that? Can you do this? And you're like, well, Tracy, by the way, there's actually some key differences. Did you want to walk us through that? Because I had never really come across, I've been in the industry for a while, and I didn't realize that, I guess it's a bit like graphic designers. You get your illustrators, your layout designers, and so on. Did you want to touch a bit on that for us, please?
Sure. I mean, I can't list all the copywriters that there are, all different types, but basically I love doing brand copywriting and also website content writing. But you get SEO copywriters, you get technical copywriters, you get copywriters who are whizzes at writing, product descriptions like for Amazon. You get social media captions. So Sian, our social media queen, she knows what she's doing in that sphere. And I think when I was in corporate, I did like the full spectrum of copywriting. You write a press release, you write a video script, as many different forms as they are writing, there are copywriters who can pick any type of writing and then become a specialist in that. And it kind of ties into what you said in the beginning, Tracy, about being a generalist versus specialist. And that's something I think every copywriter needs to walk out. You start out as a generalist. You're willing to do the product descriptions and the website and the blog posts, and you need to do that to determine what you're good at. But then as time passes, it's best to niche down and become an expert in just a handful of areas instead of doing it all. So I would say that's it in a nutshell. Copywriters and content writers, and then just a plethora of options. Yeah.
As well, I guess graphic design's a bit the same. So I studied, obviously layout and all the different things. But as ladies know, I'm a big advocate for having people who niche, because I find that creates a stronger skill set. And then bringing both of you together lifts the skill set to a whole nother level, because you're the wizard, the brand copy website. Sean's got her skill set in, social media, SEO, newsletter writing, and so on. So it really just raises the bar. Sean, did you have anything you wanted to share on that?
Not really. I think Chelsea hit the nail on the head with it, to be honest. Everyone does. When we start out, we just say yes to everything. I can write it. Of course I can. And I have been a victim of that myself, where you start out and you're writing radio ad scripts, TV ad scripts, everything. But at the end of the day, is it what you do best? And are you giving of your best when you're doing it? And I think you very quickly realize the things that you love writing about, because it flows, and the things that you really sit there and you get writer's block and you're like, how do I actually phrase this? Don't be doing those things. That's the easy way to identify how to niche, I suppose.
Yeah. And I guess, Sean, SEO, is there perhaps I want to say basic, but I know it's not basic. Could you please describe for our listeners what exactly SEO is, and how it, filters into your website, and how you can really use it to leverage your website, and also perhaps explain the time behind SEO, because a lot of people are, I want SEO, I want it done now, I want to rank tomorrow #1, and they've only just had their website for 6 months. So perhaps you can walk us through that.
Sure. Especially in now, where there are constant changes with AI becoming a thing. So Google search is starting to move away from crawling your website and all of the information on it, to more of how is AI going to analyze your website and regurgitate the information based on search results pages like that. And at the moment, the world of SEO is in a frenzy, because no one knows how Google is doing their things, and no one knows what's coming. So they're all just kind of sitting there patiently waiting and hoping that Google comes out with a statement that says something. But I think in terms of SEO, which a lot of clients, a lot of them say SOE. It's so funny. So a lot of them
have come across that,
just don't understand it from the way to pronounce it, I suppose. So SEO, search engine optimization, just refers to how the information on your website is laid out, and how search engines like Bing, Google, Chrome, Firefox, what is the little E one that no one uses anymore? Internet Explorer.
Yeah. It was a hit at one stage.
Well, I mean, there's a time and a place, I suppose. But those all have their own ways of analyzing the content on your website, and based on that, it puts your website in their search results pages. So when you put in for example, if I searched Design Studio Perth, hopefully DSP is the first thing that comes up, but it's also a very general term, because although it's your business name, there are many design studios in Perth. So
it is, yes.
It just bases the findings of those search results on the information on your website, and how we go about writing the copy for your website is with that in mind, understanding that there's H1 headlines, there's H2 headlines, and then you've got paragraphs, and you can go further into H3s and H4s, and it sounds like word salad, but it just really is a way of categorizing the information so that the website that crawls, the search engines that crawl your website have a way to easily identify the information that's on there. And it's a way that's valuable. It shows that your headlines are very succinct and to the point, and they explain exactly what you do without having to question what exactly it is. It makes use of strategic keyword placement, so that you're not just using words for the sake of it. You're using them in a way that is easy to read and understand, and easy for the websites that crawl your websites to analyze them. Kind of forgot what the point of your question was.
Nope, you've answered it spot on.
Okay. Super.
You answered it was spot on. And so, ladies, because this is called the Real Biz Life Chronicles, I'd love to know, what is the craziest thing you've done? It can be personally, it can be career-wise. Chelsea, we'll start with you.
Sure. I think the first thing that comes to mind was, when I decided to move to Vietnam. I did it with a friend of mine, Stacy, and we didn't have a job planned out. We didn't have a home planned out. We just decided we're going to Vietnam, and we experienced the country. It was amazing. I was there for 3 months. She stayed on for the remainder of the year. But we taught English, as most people do,
Yes.
people go over to Southeast Asia often. We do a TEFL certificate, and then you teach people English. And it's a lovely way to experience the culture. So when we were there, we found a job. We stayed in hotels for a bit, and then eventually got an apartment. And it was just this wild, wonderful cultural experience where, really immersed in the food and the culture. And they're so wonderful.
So
the
awesome.
Vietnamese people, they're so kind and gentle and giving, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. And you're just on a motorbike all the time, and the pollution's really hectic.
So good.
But it's beautiful. The beaches are wonderful. So I think that was pretty crazy, especially because we didn't go with a time limit in mind. So you think, like, how long am I going to stay here for? So every day was an adventure. Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess what kind of spurred that on? Did you guys just kind of, because I know a lot of, South Africans, Australians, Kiwis, all want to have like an OE, so overseas experience. Was it kind of you guys just wanted to have that adventure, or was there anything that kind of initiated that?
Yeah, I think I wanted to go somewhere in Asia, and I kind of hadn't envisioned the landscape. I remember kind of dreaming about it and thinking, I'd love to see it. I wanted to go somewhere different, not I had been to the UK before, and I wanted something that was completely culturally different, and I wanted to do some teaching. It's a passion of mine, along with loving kids and being a mom and whatnot. So I think that's kind of where it came on. It wasn't a desire I've had from when I was small. We just kind of talked about it, and it came together really nicely. Yeah.
Awesome. I think it was 2006. A good friend of mine and I, we just loved Thailand, and we decided we're going to go for 4 weeks. We're going to shop till we dropped. And, one of those just disposable shopping bags, we literally took our bikinis, I think like maybe a change of underwear, and we just shopped like no one's business. One of my best trips. Nothing was planned. There was one time we got stuck without accommodation and ended up staying in Koh Chan at like a local village, $3 a night. In like this wooden hut. It was like next level. With breakfast, it was cornflakes. It had weevils in it though, but never mind. We're like, thanks, but no thanks. And I think they just wanted to sell us like weed. We're like, no, we're busy traveling. But it was such an incredible experience. I think the mattress was like maybe 10 mil high in this little like wooden hut, and then the actual toilet was like they had a proper toilet, but the shower was like a water trough where I think some of the farm animals would just come and drink. So you literally bathed. I could not do that now, but what an incredible time. So Chelsea, I can fully relate. Like we just winged it, and we just booked the ferry. If we made it, we didn't. If not, we just stayed another night. It was one of the best trips ever.
Yeah. Definitely nice to have a once in a lifetime experience. I don't want to go back to that. I had a similar experience with the mattress, and then you get a roof, but there are no walls.
Yeah.
Just sleeping under a mozzie net, and I'm like, I don't know if I do that now. I don't know if I'm just older and wiser, but I loved it at the time.
Yeah, no, the mozzie net was a funny one because you have the mozzie net, but there's like a big hole in it. So I'm like, what's the point?
Exactly.
But, I think I've been too spoiled now to do that, but it was definitely great. Sian, what about yourself?
Oh, it's not a worldly experience. I think for me, the craziest thing that I've done so far is deciding to just give straight up natural childbirth, no medication, no intervention, nothing whatsoever. It was a very conscious decision because I think I had an amazing doula who made me very aware of the very societal standards that doctors push on pregnant women. And Chelsea, stop me if this gets too touchy. But I find that it's very easy for doctors to just schedule someone in for a C-section. And once you have a C-section, if you're planning to have more kids thereafter, it's very rare that you get to have natural vaginal birth. So
afterwards, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So for me, it was a very big decision to not have any intervention whatsoever. I told my gynae that he's not to touch me under any circumstances, not for the episiotomy, which is where they cut you in case you're not, not big. I'm not a big person. So
I have fur babies. This is educational.
One day, Tracy, when you get there.
I'm like, thanks, Sian.
I'll listen to the podcast. Look at your reaction. Your reaction alone is proof enough that we've been so brain drained from the fact that we are women. We are made to do this. only
it's
when the
incredible what
child
the
is
human body can
preparing to
do.
birth. Exactly. Only when your body is getting ready to birth your child should the doctor then come in and say, oh, you know what? There might be a bit of a complication here and we may
Yeah.
need to do your C-section because it's an emergency.
Mm.
Then I think modern medication and modern medicine, fair enough, come in and do what you need to do.
Yeah.
But up until such a point, because I have a size 3 shoe, does not mean that I won't be able to birth my child naturally. And I said, pardon me if this is too forward, I said to my gynae, I said,
No,
my feet and my
please.
vagina are two very different things. They do two different things, so you can't
Yes,
tell
of
me because my
course.
feet are small, I'm going to struggle. And
Totally.
just so many things that we learn, like birthing on your back. You're going against gravity. Why are you doing this? So I did the complete opposite. I birthed kneeling, essentially. And it was amazing. I didn't have any need for any medical intervention. I didn't tear. I walked out. My ex-husband says I walked out of the hospital like a supermodel the next day. And just because your body bounces back like this afterwards, because you're not having major surgery. I don't know how we expect women to look after children that are highly demanding in the first couple of hours after having major surgery. You're cutting through several layers of a woman's body.
So true.
Extract the child. And I just think of the trauma that comes with it as well, physically, emotionally, the trauma that gets trapped in your body, passed on to the child. It's just too much. So no, thank you.
Also, Sian, you're very driven, so I'm not surprised you walked out like a supermodel the next day.
I mean, I don't think I did. I probably waddled, to be honest. I think he was just being kind.
But it's even my sister-in-law, bless her, she's from the Philippines, small physique, everything. She was in labor for 3 days with my nephew and was adamant she was doing natural birth, and she did it. I was like, incredible. What your mindset and what a woman's body can actually do, life-giving. It's absolute miracle. So thank you for being so forward and for sharing. Sian, another thing I know, you're a manifester. You believe in the power of manifestation. Did you want to touch on that for us?
Absolutely. So when you actually contacted me, I kept wondering, where did Tracy come from? How am I having this conversation right now? And the only thing that I can attain it to is manifestation. So when I'm at gym, while I'm on the treadmill and I'm running, I generally tend to manifest and self-actualize, realizing the things that I have already achieved and putting the things out there that I still want to achieve, but saying them in a way that it's already happening. And I think that this kind of ties in with copywriting and the power of words that people just don't realize. That words can make a really big impact. You can hurt someone terribly with them. You can also lift so many people up with them, especially yourself. And our self-speak, I think, really makes a very big difference, because it changes your mind to kind of adapt to the reality that you would prefer to perceive instead of the reality that is currently unfolding, where you are so detached that you feel like you're a victim of circumstance and you have no level of control. And I use manifestation as a way to regain that control when the world feels like it's spinning out of me, and you eventually land on your feet and you realize, okay, this is happening and this is unfolding because I've already spoken it into existence. And Tracy, you're one of those things.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Likewise with you and Chelsea. And do you find, Sian, that that's, again, like the question I asked Chelsea earlier around her faith, does that help you kind of navigate through struggles, through great times that you're using that? Do you journal? Is that how you kind of manifest? Or do you have a vision board? Or
No, I don't have a vision board, but I do journal. And I find that I often journal in times of need. So I was raised in an atheist household. We never had church or anything like that. And it was very difficult for me to, I have attended church, and Chelsea even invited me, and I do want to learn more about it. But the times that I have attended, I often find myself latching onto certain words that the pastors will speak, and often find them to be contradictory. And that rubs me the wrong way. So I've really struggled with religion. And I think in that sense, I've fallen into spirituality more than I have religion. And for me, it's one of the same, to be quite honest. I believe that there is a greater power that, serves us, because we cannot be the upper echelon of whatever species this is. So I do believe that, there's definitely something greater than us. But I put my faith into spirituality more than I do religion, just because I'm very unaware of what it is.
Yeah. And Chelsea, would you say, I guess, through prayer and through reading the Bible, would that be a kind of manifestation process for you, or not necessarily?
Not necessarily, but in terms of what we do and what we believe is that you declare the word of God.
Yes.
So you can say, so there's definitely for me benefit to positive affirmations that you can speak out, but then I guess the higher order to that would be declaring what the word says. And then the Bible says God's word doesn't return void. So basically, if you speak out, whether it's healing or you speak out against anxiety, etc., in accordance with the word, then it does manifest.
Yes.
So, yeah. I mean, I can see the similarities, but I think there are two different things. Yeah.
Yes, I must say for myself, I'm more a spiritual Christian, I'd say, because I do see the value in both sides. And I do journal, I do believe in manifestation, but I guess I try and feed it into my prayer life and my, those sort of things. I know it's kind of a clash of two different beliefs. But yeah, it's definitely so powerful. There have been times I've tried to navigate life without God, and I have failed epically. So I still, I always go back to my faith, and I journal and, have a vision board. It's a very powerful tool. I think especially because I'm a visual person. I guess a bit for yourself, Sean, like you said, with words, if I see it, like, what's the saying? If your eye can see it, the mind can believe it. So I really enjoy doing that because it kind of gives me a visual to hold on to. So, and it's funny, I read a book called The Universe Has Your Back about a year ago, and it speaks about signs, and God perhaps, or the universe communicating to you. Brilliant book, highly recommend. And the actual author has an amazing story too. And the sign, I asked for a sign of an orange dragonfly. Sounds out there. Anyway, asked for the sign, wanted to know that my life was on the right track. So anyway, I've been looking for this dragonfly, the whole of Perth, everywhere I go. And actually about a week ago, now we live, where we live, there's not very many dragonflies around, except if you go to the beach side. But anyway, about a week ago, walked outside and there was a swarm of dragonflies that were orange. No joke. I was like in tears. My mom was with me. She's like, what's going on? It's so incredible. And I actually said to my mom, I'm like, are they red or orange? She's like, no, they're orange. Like, what's going on? Are you okay? But yeah, I fully believe in all of that stuff. And it's just, because sometimes you do question, am I on the right path? I've made the right decision. And, that's why I pray and I journal and try and sort of navigate things. But it was just a nice sign from the universe. And yeah, so ladies, look, thank you so much for your time and, for sharing your expertise with us. I'd love to ask one more question before we jump off. I guess, Sean, what would be one bit of advice or piece of advice that you have for someone who is potentially looking to invest in a copywriter? What would be your advice? Besides coming to Design Studio Perth, is there anything else you could recommend?
So generally, if someone is looking for new clients for their business and it's not happening, I have a very favorite saying, which is not my own, that marketing problems are copywriting problems because you're not communicating what it is that your company does effectively to the right target audience. And if you want to get clear on that, sometimes it's very difficult to do that as your business owner and living and breathing your business every single day. It's very difficult to detach yourself and put yourself in the mind of your consumer. And that's what copywriters do really, really well. So if you're trying to do it yourself, try and put yourself in the mind of your consumer and write words that would resonate with them. That's pretty much the best advice I can give. And don't waffle. Get to the point.
I find I waffle, and then you guys bring me back in, especially Chelsea. Tracy, just say less.
No, that's fine.
Thank you. And Chelsea, I guess if there was one piece of advice you wanted to share with could be a new mom or a mom that's wanting to, start her own business, what would it be?
Sure. Yeah, definitely that you can do it. And children are a blessing. They don't hold you back in any way. And, your children love you unconditionally. And if your work life needs to look a bit different, if you need to be building your business in the evenings because mornings don't work for you, go for it because the time passes anyway. And so if building a business, building a brand is in your heart, you should 100% do it because the time's going to pass anyway. And yeah, the thing is you don't have to do it alone. That's the reason that places like DSP exists. It's so that you have a base of professionals that can help you in building your brand. You don't have to do it all alone. You can stick at what you're good at and let the professionals be the professionals and then bring it all together. Yeah.
Yes, and Chelsea, there was another thing you mentioned. We were on a call, and someone said, they're quite fearful of becoming a mother. And there was something quite profound you shared around that. Do you mind to share that again? Because I love what you shared. The person was saying that they're quite nervous to be a mom. How do they know if they're ready? Do you mind to share that again with us, please?
Sure. I think what I might have shared was life only happens a day at a time. I think is that what you're referring to?
It was, and you said that children will. They will love you unconditionally. I think you've touched on it briefly, but yeah, it was just really beautiful what you shared.
Sure. I think, motherhood is like life. It happens a day at a time. And your children come into the world believing that you know everything and you are everything and you are actually all that they want. A little baby just wants to be loved and held. And obviously they have needs that you need to meet. But it's just taking life every day at a time, there's so much blessing in each day, and either you get to focus on, oh, I'm so tired and I didn't get to do what I wanted to do, or you can focus on, this is the life that I actually wanted. I'm living now what I dreamed about when I was younger. Blessing. And children are small for such a short period of time, and eventually they do, I hear, leave your home and get married and whatnot. And so just prioritizing different things in different seasons. I think that would be it.
Yeah, and I think there's a Bible verse as well. This too shall pass. Like, always hang on to that, because it kind of helps me navigate through hard times and through good times as well, because everything's kind of always only temporary, right? And we kind of forget that. We just, like you said, I'm tired, I'm sick, I'm overwhelmed. Whereas if we focus or reframe it, it can really impact your day to day.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, well, thank you so. Yeah, it's everything, isn't it? Yeah. Well, thank you so much, ladies, for your time. For our listeners, you can follow Chelsea and Sian's journey with Design Studio Perth on our socials and our LinkedIn. We'll pop all the links in the chat. Ladies, thank you so much.
Thank you as well for your time.
It's been wonderful.
Cheers. Thank you. Bye.